Okay, part 3. I know there's a lot of information to share. Hopefully, you find it useful. You got to tell me if you want me to speak more quickly or more slowly. But the third thing I want to talk about is the role of teachers and administrators. Now, this slide does say administrators, but teachers are just as important. It says administrators because we want to share this information with local administrators in Ho Chi Minh soon. So moving on to, what's this all about? We want you and you and administrators to recognize learning difficulties that are possibly learning disabilities, okay? The second is, hopefully over time in the next couple of years, there will be local progress monitoring systems in place that will really be helpful for teachers and schools. Third thing is, it's important to support teachers, families, and students. Okay, so how do you identify learning disabilities? We started to talk about this together in our class about looking in classroom observations, and interviewing parents. Let's see information from the document that I asked you to look at. This is the RTI Press Blueprint on Learning Disabilities Screening and Evaluation Guide for Low and Middle Income Countries. And look and see some of the observations that they noted that you may look for as well. So now the formal process would be first making sure that you screen children for vision and hearing. That should happen before kids come to school with the physicians. And hopefully there's going to be some UDL for all students. But what would the screening look like? Let's go and see. As we think about what we're going to look for, of course, we do need to remember that learning disabilities look different from one child to another. One child may struggle with reading and spelling, while another loves books but can't understand math. Okay, so they look different from one child to another. Because of the wide variations, there's no single symptom or profile you can look to as proof of a problem, but there are warning signs that are more common than others at different ages. Okay, so when you talk to parents about a child who's in kindergarten, you can ask the parent about the child, the characteristics when they were 3 and 4. Did they, for example, have problems pronouncing words, trouble finding the right word, or trouble thinking of the word they wanted to say, difficulty rhyming, difficulty learning the alphabet, numbers, colors, shapes, days of the week? Do they have difficulty following directions or learning routines? What about trouble holding or using a crayon, pencil, scissors, or coloring within the lines? And last, what about being able to dress independently, trouble with buttons, zippers, snaps, learning to tie shoes? Now, none of these are going to be in themselves a big deal because kids are different. Some kids are faster at this than others, but if there's a lot of problems in this group of characteristics, this is the possibility of learning disability. So these are really specific things that you can ask parents, and you can do it by screening if a school has a form, or you can do it by talking with the parents, but this is useful information. So this is going to be very helpful, and I hope you're going to look at this list and keep track of it. And this list is going to be available in Vietnamese. There's a Vietnamese version of this presentation that you can look at as well while you listen to me, if you like. Okay, so what about children as they get older? Children from ages 5 to 9, teachers and parents may notice child has trouble learning the connection between letters and sounds, that phoneme-grapheme relationship we talked about, being unable to blend sounds to make words, confusing basic words when reading. Those are the sight words, basic words. Slow to learn new skills, consistently misspelling words, making frequent errors, and then potentially trouble learning basic math concepts or having difficulty telling time and remembering sequences of things that you typically do first, second, and third, that kind of thing. Okay, so another thing really quickly about this idea of unable to blend sounds to make words, kids who are it's more likely that a child has a learning disability if they make different kinds of mistakes when they're blending sounds to make words. So it's not an articulation problem, for example, that's interfering, but they're just really confused about sound symbol relationships. And the spellings are going to be different kinds of mistakes. Okay. So that's for children ages 5 to 9. So maybe kindergarten through 3rd grade. As children get older, 10 to 13, now we see difficulty with a more advanced skills. It is possible. We did see this child, Jenny, that children don't struggle until they're older when the demands of school get even greater. So with older students at age 10 and up, now you might start to see difficulty comprehending what is read, increased difficulty with math skills, trouble with open-ended questions, the why questions, inferential questions, not just factual questions, and difficulty with word problems in math as opposed to computation problems. Kids will definitely dislike reading, writing, and avoid reading out loud if they struggle. Poor handwriting is very common if, again, you have all these other problems. I'm pausing on poor handwriting because some kids who are very gifted also have poor handwriting. And so, again, none of these things in and of themselves are discerning. They're not anything truly one symptom, right? It's the constellation or the collection of these kinds of problems that really, when many of these are obvious, then you suspect learning disability. Okay, so moving on, in addition to poor handwriting, poor organizational skills. So even when they're trying, their homework and their desk is messy and disorganized. Notice I said even when they're trying, as opposed to kids who don't care. They will likely have trouble following discussions in class. They won't hear everything or understand everything as quickly as other children do in classroom discussions. They will also likely have difficulty organizing their thoughts and explaining their ideas out loud. And something else on here is what I mentioned earlier, spelling the same word differently in a single paper, a single essay, a single document. So very inconsistent mistakes. So these are some hopefully helpful indicators that you can think about and keep track of. Okay, so this next slide is really talking about the future, that in the future in Vietnam, that the same RTI path is something which is followed, so that you are the next group of people as teachers and future parents, potentially for some of you, that you identify the signs of learning challenges, that you're able to screen for kids. Eventually, psychologists in Vietnam will hopefully be able to have some diagnostic tools with norms that are norm reference tests that we talked about, and then special education can be used to refine and individualize supports. Okay, a list here for screening and evaluation, just information sources, family background, history of the child's development, do the observation, review past assignments and exams from previous grade. Then you get into the formal testing. We're going to do vision and hearing screening, potentially speech and language assessment tools, intelligence assessment tools, potentially if you are using a discrepancy model. or you want to rule out intellectual disability. And then reading, writing, and math assessment tools, motor skills assessment, and potentially a functional behavior assessment. Now, this is such a long list, and I keep talking, and of course, none of you are here to ask questions or make comments. So what I'm hoping is that you will write down a question and bring it up when we see each other, or a comment. Keep track of your ideas, keep track of your questions, so we can talk about them together in class. Okay, so this document, I'm not going to read through anymore, but there is a screening checklist. And then they also have a evaluation checklist, which is basically taking the screening and adding on things like multidisciplinary team and other things. Okay, so pretty much nearing the end, you can click on the link when you see the slides, because progress monitoring systems are out there. Again, this was for administrators. And so there's this website, you're going to see it for week 6, where administrators can learn how to develop progress monitoring systems. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Want to make sure that I mention again that resilience is really important. It's something that you can teach. It's definitely important to reduce fear and stigma among families so that they know it's not their fault, it's not the child's fault, but learning disabilities are real. Help students know that they can learn and become successful adults. Okay, so I really do like this understood.org website for information that you may provide to parents. Okay, so that is it. Thank you for listening. I hope it's been helpful, and I will see you all soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.